Yeah. We are live. We're now live. We're now live with our first conversation that we're going to have. Hopefully, start of May. Why are you looking like that?
I'm sitting up. You're supposed to sit up. What am I supposed to be? I'm sitting up straight. You're supposed to sit up straight. My back is straight. Excuse me for using proper posture.
Okay, good. Now you're looking.
Yes,
You
yes.
got to look more at the
that's it.
camera, maybe at each other to make this work right.
Yeah.
Because it's going to look like we're looking at the computer when we're not looking at the
Yeah.
computer.
Well, hi. See, we just look up there.
Hey.
Well, I would
Now-
like to explain to you who I am.
You're
See?
not live. Well, as we
I'm
go
gonna punch
along
in your
here,
face
why were you going to hit me?
because you talking mess.
Now, at this point, you can start to say, hey, this is where we're at.
Hey, everybody.
No, on your phone. On your,
Oh,
yeah, on your
I don't know
social
what you were
media platform.
saying.
'Cause
Okay.
we're gonna do this, and we're gonna stay consistent with these types of discussions. We're gonna have fun doing it at the same time, and the goal is really to just share, I guess, to talk about the things that we go through every day and some of the conversations that we have with a variety of different people that we run across in our everyday lives. Some of these discussions have to do with a lot of Christian topics. Some of these discussions may have to do with some current events. Once we talked about something about changing jobs, just a variety of things we're going to talk about as we try to develop something here that I feel that we're supposed to be doing. So something I probably should have did a long time ago, but here I am now. Are you on there?
Yeah, I'm getting ready to share it to the people.
Also, you're on there.
Yeah, that's
we got an eye. Look at that eye. One eye, look like CBS. And hopefully, people come in here. You go back and you can hear more about us. I'm Jeff. This Tiff, and we're here to share our everyday lives. I was a pastor for quite a long time, close to 10 years, a senior pastor, was a youth pastor, and I have a lot of stories from that that we're going to talk about. Our transition to Florida will be some of the things that we talk about. But right now, today, just an introduction to get people introduced to what we got going on. See what happens.
Yeah.
You've been saying this, that we should have been doing this for a long time. So here we are.
We should have did this because we had already started it up when we were in Ohio before we moved.
Okay.
And then it kind of fell south after we moved.
Why?
I think it was more so the excitement of the move and things. And then also what we both were feeling emotionally after what we had been through and just getting that time to kind of just, and that's what it was when we moved. For once, we didn't have somebody outside of our family that needed us to do something. Yeah. And so when we moved here, it was like, we have no responsibility.
I guess it was like that.
It was. And it was like we've pretty much been on vacation since then because it was like nobody needs us. And it felt good to have a moment where we could just.
I don't know if it's called going through a lot or.
But just being busy and just the rat race and the grind is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about life, period. We had, because you got to think, you were full-time pastor, full-time manager, dad, son, friend, and all of that other stuff.
I ain't got no friends.
Well, I mean, you got to be friendly in order to have friends.
Be friendly, but I don't have any friends. That's sad. You're going to start crying.
I got friends. I got all the friends. Because you have to be friendly.
So you're saying I'm not friendly?
I'm just saying you got to be friendly.
Whatever. All right.
I mean, that's all I'm saying.
Florida is a different lifestyle, a different experience. And the myth is that it's expensive down here. It's really not. You get a lot more of your money back because they don't have state taxes or city taxes. I don't say a lot more of your money back, but you get some of your money back.
You get to spend what they take in the other state. In Ohio, we get to spend what they took in Ohio.
Yeah, so and it's like a wash.
Yeah.
It's like a wash. So whatever you think you're losing or you're not going to be able to afford, keep in mind you ain't got to pay taxes.
Right.
So as long as you ain't got to pay taxes, man, that right there is a win.
Right.
So everything and stuff, man, they're not more expensive. When we went back to Ohio a couple of years ago, same prices.
Yeah. So it's pretty much same price.
The cost of living is not different.
Mm-hmm.
Heck, the house we live in now, if we were in Ohio, we'd be in Westwood. What the rent prices I'm hearing? What's some of the rent prices you heard up there? That's crazy.
Well, I don't know. Somebody had somewhere. Somebody wanted like $2,000 to stay on Hoover.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's
what I'm saying. So how the
rent
price
it was on Home. It was on Home.
Hoover.
Home is worse.
Haverstraw. I don't care where it is. Home, Hoover, Haverstraw, whatever it is. Who you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's what house on there should you be renting for $2,000?
Right.
There shouldn't be no house for $2,000. There's no way, right?
Yeah. But like he was saying, getting back on topic, it was a lot moving, and when you move from one state to another, it's hard because you have to find new doctors, new schools, learn the communities. So it's not like it was totally different from any of our moves that we have ever done before. And just being somewhere where you really don't know the people, and it was a lot. It was a lot. So
come to discover all the people are the same.
Yeah.
There's no different from north and south.
Mm-hmm.
We're 1,000 miles away from where we grew up and where we're from, and you see some of the stuff that's similar that I experienced up in Ohio, in the workplace. Different churches that we went to.
Mm-hmm.
It's a similar experience, and I'm glad we came down here. I don't think we would ever came down here if it weren't for COVID. COVID changed my perspective on a lot of things.
How did it do that?
Because I realized that I don't know. I can't really explain it. I realized there was more out there. When we started going virtually on the church, remember we started going virtually.
You started learning that things could be done another way.
Exactly.
And then, but for me, I learned that a lot of things that we do in the church really don't have to be done per se. And for me, it wasn't that I didn't enjoy the fellowship of getting together with other churches. It's just we never encountered the unchurched. Everything was just us getting together with another group of believers and worshiping together, which is fine. But to have a point or to get together to actually make disciples, for me, one would have to be outside of the building, or would be where you would put yourself into contact. Well, for you to put yourself where you could come into contact with the unchurched.
That's a good point.
And so if all we're doing is getting together with people that already believe, then we're not making disciples. And so that was the lesson that I got out of COVID, is just that the way we're doing church, I mean, how beneficial are we to the kingdom? Yes, every now and then we get one homeless person that would happen to come into the church, or you might run into somebody in the street, or somebody might bring somebody. But as far as us going out and being out, it just wasn't enough of that for me to feel like I was being effective as far as kingdom building.
I don't know.
That's just for me. I mean, I made some other people, I impacted other people's lives in a positive way. I do believe I made a difference. But as far as if the goal is to make disciples, I don't know because everybody that I came into contact to had already heard of God in some way, shape, or form, and had grew up there in the church. That's what I'm saying. And so I didn't meet too many people that was just right off the street. What must I do to be saved? Because everybody wants that. You hear it all the time. Because you hear that. Everybody wants that to run into that person that says, what must I do to be saved? So you can have your moment. And that was the moment that I've always looked for. And as I guess First Lady was my title, but as First Lady, I never ran into that. And so I'm waiting for that, what must I do to be saved moment.
I guess you jumped all the way into, I guess we can end it right now because you told the whole story, what we're trying to accomplish here. In that little bit of time that you're in there saying what you're saying. So it says, not so hard behind us. And then it says, he who is without sin cast the first stone.
All right.
You said that to me. I said this years ago, way before I even became pastor, when I was just street preaching, if you will. I said that I feel sometimes, especially the people that we were encountering at that time, that heaven was too hard. So hell is not as bad as not. It's because of the situations that I'm in now. Hell might not be so bad of an option. Look at what I'm up against. Look at how I'm living. Look at what I can't seem to get ahead. And then what I see, heaven's not attainable.
Right.
And so we had this conversation not so long ago. It's like, man, it's not that hard. So that's where the not so hard comes from. And then the he who was without sin cast the first stone. That comes from the idea of we're all not perfect. Right. We all make mistakes. We all have things that we deal with in this world, in this life. And some things we call sin is not sin. Some things that we do is really, it's really embarrassing. And so as we go along, I'm going to tell a lot of different stories.
Yes.
I'm not going to say anybody's name specific. Nobody's name.
Yeah, we're not blasting nobody.
I'm going to say some names, but I'm not going to say anybody's name at the church I pastor.
Right.
I'm not going to say nobody's name of the churches we fellowship with, that because I don't have, that's not what this is. But I promise you, I'm going to say some stuff about some other stuff, though.
Oh yeah.
So I can guarantee you that. And I'm not going. I'm not like however it come up. It's just going to come up, and then we'll start talking, and we'll just start talking about it. But we can't. All I see today is a couple of things, and I'm seeing this from a small perspective. I'm not putting this out here to say this is what's happening all over the place, but from a small perspective of what I see. There's two things happening. And so we're having a conversation about, I don't know, I guess you want to talk church politics, whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, because the reason politics and polity.
Well, I don't want to get in on it. Don't do that. We ain't doing that. You had a couple of your friends a couple of weeks ago, or a week ago, say to you about asking you if they could do yoga.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Then you had one of your other friends ask you about her gay pastor who seems to be living better than
her straight pastor.
Than a straight pastor. These are some of the things we're going to talk about. Not that fancy stuff you over there talking about. And so there's some confusion there.
Yeah, because people want to know what people want to live. People want to know how to live right. And it's hard. Well, I know for me, I'll only speak for my own self. It's hard for me to sit and listen to a pastor talking about infidelity, and I know he's sleeping with somebody. It's hard. And I'm not saying that I'm going to judge this person, but you have so many people that we just see so much activity in churches that's just not.
I take it a step
shouldn't be happening.
I take it a step further. When you speak about infidelity, right, or cheating, the reason you can't talk about it is because, like you said, you're compromised. Right. So what does that do? Does that disqualify you? Because in some regard, you can't even talk about that.
Right.
Or do you still talk about it while you're working through it? But there's some things that, we got to do, a lot better job of being a better example.
Yeah.
Right. And it seems like they try to, people are being manipulated, manipulated to do things, manipulated for not being there, making people feel guilty for not being there, all types of stuff. And then, okay, somebody's teaching this, somebody else is teaching that. This dog is tripping. We get this dog. Keep it moving.
Okay. Yeah, it's so many different things that's going on within the church, and you're trying to stay focused. For me, there was a lot of distractions, and there was a lot of different things that would take my mind off of worship in that moment. But one of the things was, and I'm not going to get into too much detail, but my husband was a pastor, and there was women that wanted him, and didn't care that they saw me sitting there. And never once did I have any woman come back to me and tell me anything, or nobody ever saw anything. He handled it so that it never made it to me. And the only reason why I knew something had happened or something had went on is because the young lady that was involved, she changed the way she started treating me. Because at first we were friends, and then all of a sudden, from out of nowhere, we became enemies. And when I say that, it was a matter of like from Tuesday to Wednesday. It wasn't like a gradual breaking away from. It was like I talked to her Tuesday and everything was cool, and we besties. I mean, we besties, like me, my sister never part, Naki, nana. We besties, okay?
Don't do that.
And no, they know what I'm talking about. That's from a movie.
It's
they
more
know
than
what
just but you though. All right.
And so what happened? She started the very next day when I called her, she had all this attitude. Now, I didn't know what had happened. I didn't know that, she shot her shot or whatever, and he checked her. I didn't know any of this. But it's hard to worship, because then once I found out about it and she's still coming to church, it's like, I'm serious. And then you expect me to be lifting holy hands when I'm like, and some women didn't care. I remember one Sunday he hugged somebody and she caressed the back of his head. And I saw the uncomfortable look on his face, but he made his way on up to the pulpit. And it's like, really? Now, how am I supposed to find God after that? Because right now I'm feeling... But go ahead and talk about how you handled it.
I'm not going to talk about how I handled it specifically. What I don't want to do is get in all those. Yeah, I guess we can't get in all that stuff, but yeah, that happens, right? Mm-hmm. But in a lot of cases, those things get entertained,
right?
And that's one of the issues. They get entertained, and once it becomes the real issue is that when you're in that position and you almost feel like you're invincible, nobody can touch you, and you essentially can do anything you want.
Right.
There's a lot of wolves, out there. They used different methods. Like right now, we just get all the way into it. Like right now, what's the most popular thing being taught specifically in a Black church right now? First quarter of the year, it happens every year faithfully. They talking about tithing and making people feel bad for not tithing or for not giving. That's the biggest thing right now. And then you start going into when it gets warmer, and you'll start having all the fellowships and all that. But right now, the biggest thing is tithing.
Yeah.
And the reality about that is, if you read what it says about tithing in Corinthians in the 9th chapter. And I'll let you go find out for yourself. If it's one or two, you go find out for yourself. It says that you're supposed to give what you purposed in your heart. That has nothing to do with a tenth. So in other words, what I'm saying is, the church has limited themselves in a tenth.
Yeah. Yeah. I see where you're going with that.
It could be a tenth. It could be a 1/10. It could be a 50th. It could be a third. It's not that. 1/10 is a new word. What it is that because there were some people, and specifically in talking about that chapter and reading up to it, there were some people who simply couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Was the woman with the 2 mice, was that a 10th of all she had? If that was a tenth of all she had, because what it said is she gave all she had. Didn't it say that?
Mm-hmm.
So if she gave all she had and it was 2 pennies, I don't care what the value of it was, that's more than a tenth. She purposed to do that in her heart. I can't tell you how many times I said, don't tithe if it's going to take away from paying a bill that you're going to come and ask me for the money for next week.
Right.
I don't want your tithe, because you're number one is that's not the right thing to do. Pay your bill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to ask me for the money the next week, right?
Right.
The real issue is your money management. So when I was pastoring, getting pressured to preach about tithing, or giving, I don't like the word tithe, giving, which it should have been, right? But you got to slowly get people there.
Right.
You can't give what you don't have.
Exactly.
So the first thing you got all these people with no jobs. We got to help these people find jobs. Mm-hmm. Now that they got a job, we got to help these people manage their money. It's a process to get to that place.
Yeah.
But it's not starting from here and ending up here. It's a process. So we said, wait a minute, we got to get people employed. Once we get people employed, these people don't know how to use their money. Once they learn how to use their money, then we talk about the responsibilities that we all share, because we all share in these responsibilities. And if everybody did their part, everything would be taken care of. But we manipulate people with the word tithing. Tithing is redemptive. Tithing, you give to get something back. That is not, God don't operate like that. Yeah. When you do that, you have excluded a large portion of people. If that's true, you've excluded so many people. Mm-hmm. So many people. And that's why when you go and you look at what you see when you go, think about the church we just hear, the one we left in Florida. One side was all these alleged leaders.
Yeah, yeah.
You had a whole side that were all the mothers, the mother board, the deacons' wives, and all the other leaders on that side, right? Then you had the side over here where it was just the trustees and all that. Then you had the deacons over here sitting almost with the preachers, and then you had regular folk in a whole nother lane.
Right. Like now to me, that setting made me feel set apart from the rest of the congregation.
It's not supposed to be that way.
Because when I'm used to where we were, where I sat at, I had my seat, but it was within the congregation. And I remember one of the things that somebody said to me, and it was one of the best things somebody could have ever said to me. He said, I didn't even know you were the first lady. He said, you look like everybody else. It was a pastor, Pastor Cranford, as a matter of fact. He said, you look like everybody else, because at the time he came into the church, I was in the lobby with some of the kids.
We all did like that.
and just playing around and just normal, everyday, no big hats, no nothing. I mean,
it was so.
It was just no fancy title.
According to James, and I put it to even take it a step further, if Jesus would have walked in that church, do you think he would have been pleased? Absolutely not.
No, because it was, to me, it was like you have elite.
So then think about what happened. Think about what happened when I don't know none of these people, and so here comes somebody that I'm watching. From my point of view, I don't know this person, look like he's ready to say, man, I'm ready for a change, whatever that may be for for whatever who he is. I'm watching this guy. I didn't know he's somebody who come in on a regular basis and does it every other week. You know what I mean?
Right. I
don't know that.
Right.
So as he come down talking about he want to do whatever he wants to do. You know, I'm hugging him and talking to him and shaking his hand and sharing the story, the what I've seen him doing through the course of the service. But because of you got Pharisees over here and all these other things over here, I was wrong.
Right.
And even with us discussing that, he was like, well, wait a minute, you wouldn't have done. It's like, Tiffany, I've done that my whole life.
Yeah.
And then you can't tell me, like I told you, you can't tell me settled and do stuff like that. Sutter was talking about walking around. If you ain't had nothing to give, walk around, look for a penny.
He sure did.
Come on, man. You can't tell me that. That's not what that was.
But, you know, I think that particular situation, it went left so quick because, and I'm just going to say for what I believe it was. I believe it was ego from the top. And it was hard to watch, but part of me felt uncomfortable being there, but part of me was so excited to feel like we found a church home that I was just like, let's do this, you know? And so in my excitement to find a church home, I was almost willing to put up with just about anything, because it was a lot of distractions once the pastor would come back and tell me stuff that the parishioners had said. Because now I'm looking around like, who talking about me? You want me to worship and focus on him. Now I'm looking around thinking, who talking?
Man.
It's a distraction, but you don't expect to have those conversations come from the pulpit, though. Not from the pastor. That's conversation that you hear amongst the people.
I'm gonna push back on you on that, because I would say it's common.
Well, see, I've never been in those spaces like you have.
You haven't been, but you've seen it though.
Yeah,
and don't act like that's what I'm saying. You can't act like you ain't seen it.
Yeah.
Okay, just because you physically weren't in that room when it happened doesn't mean you don't know about it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So okay, you might not have experienced it yourself, but you know it happens.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And then whatever. I ain't gonna get into that.
Yeah.
We'll move on from that. So the not so hard to what? Not so hard to.
It's not so hard to live. We put so many stipulations, like you said. Like, okay, I'm gonna use the young lady with the yoga. She has lupus, and her doctor, she's trying to find a holistic way to treat her pain. So her doctor recommended yoga. So she goes home and she tells her grandmother that this is what the doctor is having her do. The grandmother goes and tells her how the origins of yoga is in, Buddhism, or however you say it. I may be pronouncing it wrong, but it's the roots are there and what it means and all of this stuff. So she called me and I'm like, well, I used yoga and it helped my back because of the stretching, and it gets things, feeling a little bit better back there. And so I just felt like in that moment, this young lady had the dilemma of her health versus her salvation. And it's so many things that we use as a tool here that was never meant for that, or may have been created for this, but now we're using it for this too. It doesn't mean that your heart is in that origin where it was. You're using this as a tool to get better. This whole incident had nothing to do with her salvation. She wasn't about to go to a mosque or wherever they go and chant, and she wasn't doing none of that. She just wanted to be able to not take pain medicine. And so I told her, if I was in Dayton, I would drive you to the yoga studio, because she needed to do it. And people should be okay with that. That doesn't mean we all seen it during the Beyonce concert, during the Super Bowl. Oh, I know what that 7:00 means on there. That's the devil. Everybody knows the origins of everything, and everything is bad. You can't do nothing. You can't eat nothing. Everything is just, you're going to hell.
So I don't want to, we'll talk a lot about, again, this is an introduction more than anything to introduce ourselves and who we are, just having a general conversation.
Right.
But I say this at work all the time. I learned this from one of my old bosses, because you get so mad when we'll have our staff meetings and people reporting, as he would call the news. He would just say, hey, man, y'all just a bunch of news reporters. We need news makers.
Right.
So we've reported all the news. I'm not saying we, but all of us. We've reported the news. We reported all of the issues. We reported all of the things that we feel is wrong. But what are the solutions? What do you do? What are the solutions? And hopefully that's what we can help with is offer some solutions, right?
Right.
Because there are no, it seems like, okay, it's either this or that. It's not just even what we believe, all the stuff that whatever all people believe, right?
Yeah.
So what are the solutions? Should I sit under someone who I know ain't right?
That's it.
What's my solution? Do I stay there? What do I do? At the workplace? Do I stay at a job that I'm not valued at? A lot of times we don't move because we fear that we can't do better than what we already have. Right. That's not just, that's with every single thing in life. We have a fear, right, that we can't do better, so we stay in situations that we shouldn't stay in.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Let's do this right here, and then we'll wrap this up, because that's what I really want to do. So we'll do this. I'm gonna do it from this. Yeah. Let's do this. If I can find it, which I will find it. Yeah. I tell you, when I get to it, you'll see what I'm talking about. Go ahead.
Oh, I didn't have too much more to say. I was waiting for you to
say running your mouth.
I mean, well, shoot, you don't want, you be like, don't say that. I start talking.
What do you mean, say what? No, I don't say that every time you start talking.
No, I'm just saying, I done got it twice already, so yeah. I'm kind of. Yeah. I mean, it's like, if we gonna talk about it, let's talk about it. Shoot.
Okay, now you saying that, but we were leading up to this moment.
I know, but I'm in the moment now. I'm in the moment, and we doing this. If that's what we go do, that's what we go do.
You the one said that. Now all of a sudden, it's all this other stuff.
No, I didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but then at the same time, you know what? You the one that talked me out of it and was like, "Look,
hurt anybody's feelings." I don't know.
And I don't want to taint anybody's opinion or view of anybody either. Just because I had a bad experience, don't mean they're gonna have a bad experience either. Fair. And that's why I didn't want to do that.
Enough. That's fair. Yeah. You should do that.
And so that's why I didn't want to mention names and whatnot. Because just because it happened to me, don't mean it's gonna happen to them.
That's fair. I get that. And you're right.
Because as far as I'm concerned, that pastor, I'm pretty sure that pastor has a lot of regret about that happening. Mm-hmm.
All right. So talking about just moves us to where we're at, talking about fear over faith. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to use, this is Mark 6, and it's going to be 45 through 52. Mark 6, 45 through 52. And we can edit this out and put this on something, make it whatever. I'm using Mark because through history and through some of the scholars and people like Josephus, who are Jewish scholars in the first century, Eusebius, Tertullian, that those individuals were somewhat around and still could hear some of those stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in Jewish historians, they were very good at keeping and gathering information. They took pride in that, lack of a better term. They took pride in their keeping their heritage and the documentation of where they come from, what God has done for them, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So the Gospel of Mark is written from Mark listening to Peter's stories.
Mm-hmm.
So really, this is Mark writing about what he heard Peter talk about.
Okay.
So I want you, when I read this, you're going to notice a name that's not in here. And then at the end, when when Jesus was risen and he told the women to go tell the disciples he's risen, it says, go tell the disciples and Peter.
I knew that was coming.
Because, and so keep in mind that this is the Gospel of Mark is written from what he heard Peter talk about. He was with him. He heard all this stuff, heard him preaching about it. Let's think about all the times they were together and he could hear stories about the things he ran apart with, did with Jesus. And then I also want you to think about when Peter walked on the water with Jesus, Jesus walked on the water and Peter did too, right? In the other Gospels that you hear this, you clearly know it was Peter who did it. Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him on the other side of Bethsaida, while he himself was sending the crowd away. After bidding them a farewell, he left for the mountain to pray. When it was evening, the boat was in the middle of the sea, and he stood alone on the land. Seeing them straining at the oars, for the wind was against them, about the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea, and he intended to pass them by. But when they saw him, they walked on the sea, saying, "Suppose that it was a ghost," and cried out. For they all saw him and were what? Terrified. But immediately he spoke out to them and said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." Then he got into the boat with them, and the wind stopped, and they were utterly astonished. 52. For they had not gained any insight for the incident of the loaves, but their heart was hard. If you didn't have any other Gospels, you would have never known Peter walked on the water. Didn't talk about that. It said they thought they saw a ghost.
Right.
They were terrified. And when he, meaning Jesus, got into the boat, what? Then the wind stopped. Why did Mark leave Peter out? I thought this was one of the most miraculous things that's ever happened. Peter stepped out of the boat on faith. He got all the way to Jesus and he took his eyes off of Jesus. And that's why he fell. Right? Why did Mark tell us about Peter doing that? To me, it's obvious.
You tell me.
We made it out to be that it was this big thing that Peter walked on the water, right? Why didn't Peter? If this was such a miraculous thing and it was such a great thing that Peter did, why is Mark not explaining what Peter did here?
Because Mark knew that Jesus could do it.
Now,
and so it wasn't shocking to him.
Listen to what I'm saying. Peter, in the other Gospels, you know that Peter walked on the water. Remember what I said. This is written. Mark is writing this gospel really from the point of view of Peter and what Peter has done and seen and observed.
Also, that's why he didn't talk about him walking on the
water. It was important to us. Why wasn't it that important to Peter? Peter was also the same one that also said, "Jesus, I'll never deny you." Peter was the one that always spoke out and said something before he's supposed to, right? So why, if this was such a great moment for Peter, as you've all heard it preached, why didn't he want to be talked about?
Because when he started to sink, he lost faith. That ain't nothing to be proud of to tell people about.
Step all the way
Just
back.
Tell me what you want me to get from this and stop trying to get me to figure it out.
It ain't about getting, I want you to listen to what I'm saying. He never left the boat in faith.
Right.
So he never lost what he didn't have.
But he took his eye off Jesus.
But he never lost what he didn't have.
So you saying he didn't have faith?
I'm telling you he didn't have faith.
Okay.
The Bible told you he didn't have faith.
Right.
What did Jesus say to him in the other Gospels when he lifted Peter up? Why did you have little faith? Why were you afraid?
So he said he had little faith. He didn't say he had no faith.
He didn't have enough faith to do what he called to do. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's the reason why we in where we in now with half these church folk. Real talk. Don't do that. You know what he meant. He also said, why were you afraid? Right. He also said when he first saw him, they were terrified. Mm-hmm. He also said that when they saw him, they thought it was a ghost. Right. He also said, if it is you, bid me to come. Mm-hmm. That's not faith. That is, man, I don't really know, but if it is, right. That's like, hey, man, I'm going to go buy this lottery ticket and everything going to get paid off. That ain't faith. You scratch that ticket and you're right where you were when you bought the damn ticket. I shouldn't have said damn, but I said it anyway. There's nowhere in there. There's nowhere in there where it says Jesus commended Peter for his faith to walk as far as he did. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good job, Peter. You made it so far. Your faith got you this far. If you just would have believed just a little bit more, you would have got all the way to me. That's not what Jesus said. Mm-hmm. And then I want you to understand the chaos didn't stop until Jesus took Peter back to where he was supposed to be, which was where? In the boat. Mm-hmm. Because he said, get into the boat and go to the other side. Yeah. When we were children and we weren't where we were supposed to be, what usually happens?
Somebody get over there where you belong.
No. So you're somewhere where you ain't supposed to be, and something happened to you.
You had no business over there.
Something, right. Uh-huh. So I went off the camera. Hey, when I was, I just give you the story. So when I used to skip high school, you know that I skipped class like crazy. I never went to class, you know that. Mm-hmm. So I'm skipping school. I come back to the school at the end of the day, and I see my dad's car there. Mm-hmm. Where was I supposed to be?
At school.
But I was skipping school. When I got there, I didn't expect to see my dad's car there. So that was the day I decided, you know what? I ain't going back home. I'm running away. I can't go back home. Ain't no way he'd know what I'm doing now. Right? So I ran away for like the evening. I ran away for the evening. Okay. Oh. And I just went to this park. It got dark and I got tired and I ended up going home and biting a bullet. But the point is that if something would have happened to me while I was doing whatever I was doing, right? And my dad had to come and get me from whatever I was doing, the first thing he would have said to me was, why weren't you where you were supposed to be?
Right.
That's why X happened. That's why Y happened. This is why I told you that you were supposed to be here. Why did you leave the house when I told you not to leave the house? And you knew not. Why'd you open the door when I told you not to open the door? You know all the stuff we went through when we were kids. Mm-hmm. Anytime you were doing something you weren't supposed to be doing and something happened.
Right.
There was never compassion for why you got what you got. Was it?
It wasn't supposed to be.
Because you were somewhere you weren't supposed to be.
Was what you got while you was where you had no business.
I've never gotten compassion for being somewhere I wasn't supposed to be, and something happened to me, and I get rescued, and then I come back. Oh man, it's okay. No, I've always been scolded for being somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. I was supposed to be at home. I wasn't supposed to sneak out. Jesus said, you're supposed to be in the boat. It don't matter about the chaos of the sea. It don't matter about the winds. It don't matter about the waves. It doesn't matter what circumstance you come against. I told you to get into the boat and go to the other side.
Right.
That was the instruction. If that was such a wonderful thing to talk about, why didn't Peter think it was so wonderful?
Right.
You're right. He was embarrassed, but I want you to paint the full picture of why he was embarrassed. Then I want to paint the picture of why did we preach that like that?
It could be that they believe that that's the story, how they believe. I don't know why. You know, everybody don't study.
Huh?
Everybody, some people just repeat what they've heard other people say.
That's a great point. But think about is what I'm telling you wrong?
From what I'm hearing, yeah. No, it doesn't sound. Just from what the word says and how you broke it down, it makes sense.
Have you ever heard it that way? You've heard it that way, that Peter should not have gotten out the boat.
Reverend Cunningham.
Who other than that Reverend Cunningham?
Oh no, I ain't heard nobody else.
Exactly.
Reverend Cunningham.
He said Peter should have stayed in the boat, didn't he? You've never heard it anywhere else. So what? But Reverend Cunningham, what's the difference between him and everybody else? I
mean, he was the real deal.
He loved you for real. Peter should have stayed where he was instructed to be. And keep in mind, nothing ever stopped until Jesus got back into the boat,
right,
and took Peter back there, and took him back to where he was supposed to be. They were chastised. Right. Peter says it here. He says they were utterly astonished, and I can imagine that was probably Peter more utterly astonished than anybody else, but they all were, and they had not gained any insight. It says, right? From the incident of the loaves. So where's the faith? You didn't learn nothing from the loaves when I broke the 5,000 and we fed all these people and all we had was this. You didn't learn nothing.
Right.
So where's the faith? Where's this faith that everybody talks about that Peter had?
Right.
So Mark even goes a little bit further and said, Jesus scolded them to the point where they had not gained any insight from what they just experienced. Because that was the day after. You learned nothing. Where's the faith? I mean, you tell me, where's the faith? Where's faith? Where's faith? Let's go to another one.
I thought we was about to get off of here.
But you getting tired? I guess I'll leave you alone then, since you don't want to.
I do, but I just got to pee, and I don't know why I said that. And I don't know what covered me up after I said it.
Go. I'm looking for Matthew and all the other ones. This is Matthew. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. There's the first word. And it's a ghost, they said, and cried out in fear, not faith. But Jesus immediately said to them, take courage, it is I, don't be afraid. Giving them encouragement to stay in the boat.
Right. So
stay where you at.
You had to listen to him at his word.
Stay where you
at. Peter questioning.
Lord, there you go.
And
Lord,
so okay, I got it. He should have even asked that. He should have never asked that question.
Thank you. Okay. Come. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind and he was afraid and began to sink, cried out, Lord, save me. The shortest prayer in the Bible. Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand, called him. You of little faith, why did you doubt?
So the doubt is not what made him sink. It's him getting out of the boat to begin with and questioning.
And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. That's why
the chaos caused from him stepping out the boat.
It was already chaos. The fear of the chaos caused him to leave the boat. What? Here's the reason I'm telling you that he should have been in the boat the whole time and believe what Jesus said the first time.
Oh, yeah.
Because he said, And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down.
Mm-hmm.
When Jesus got Peter back to where he was supposed to be,
everything calmed
down. That's why I'm saying he should have never left the boat.
At what point did it get chaos?
It was all chaos the whole time. The whole entire time. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on the other side while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up by the mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, they were alone, and the boat was already considerable distance from the land, buffeted by the winds, buffeted by the waves, because the wind was against it. He sent them off. It was cool. Then the storm came.
Right.
And when they were going through the storm, then he comes walking across the water. Their first thoughts were they're terrified and it's a ghost.
Mm-hmm.
And to prove that it's Jesus, what did Peter say? If it is you, not since it's you,
right,
bid me to come. Jesus said, come on. You think that Jesus didn't know that he was going to sink that whole time?
Yeah.
He know why he asked him to come, because he was terrified. The others were terrified too, don't get me wrong.
But they knew to stay in that boat.
Why?
Because Jesus told them to stay in the boat.
Peter was always the one to take that extra step. I'll never deny you, Jesus. And what'd he do? You know, Peter had to learn lessons in humility, like we all do. This was a lesson in humility right here, not a lesson in faith. Your pride and your arrogance thought you could walk to me. Your pride and your arrogance wouldn't allow you to sit where you were supposed to and weather the storm that I commanded to come against you. He was trying to strip him of that arrogance, that pride, I can do it attitude.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see
That's why he allowed him to walk on the water. It was never intended to make it. It wasn't because he took his eyes off Jesus. If he would have made it, what do you think? You couldn't have told Peter nothing.
Right. And then, yeah. That would have
come on.
Yeah.
What would you have been? Peter would have been the one thinking that he should have been hung. Peter would have probably thought he was Jesus. Now I'm going a little bit too far, but you get my point.
Right. I'm always tired.
We're going to exit this full screen, y'all. Let y'all go. I appreciate you listening to the old man. Until we meet again.